Hi there, it's Matt here, and welcome back to the podcast. So imagine preparing for bed by placing a strip of tape over your lips. It sounds bizarre, almost like putting training wheels on your mouth to teach it how to behave at night. Yet, this quirky ritual known as mouth taping has gone viral as a purported remedy for snoring, sleep apnea, and even bad breath. Videos tagged #mouth tape have amassed over 7 million views on TikTok, and about 1 in 10 adults in a recent US survey admit to giving it a try. Advocates claim it leads to quieter nights and more refreshing sleep. But does mouth taping really work? And is it safe? In many ways, you can understand the theory behind mouth taping when you understand the anatomy and physiology of breathing. Because breathing through the nose has well-known advantages. The nose warms, humidifies, and filters incoming air. It's like your body's built-in climate control and air purifier all in one. In contrast, breathing through an open mouth is like opening a window in a desert sandstorm. You get unfiltered, dry air rushing in. Mouth breathing at night often leads to a parched mouth by morning, a scratchy throat, and sometimes louder snoring, since an open jaw can let the tongue and throat tissues collapse more easily. The idea behind mouth taping is therefore rather straightforward. Keep the lips sealed to encourage nasal breathing. Simple, right? Well, perhaps not. This mentality, which you can find on the internet, often overlooks the complex reasons why someone might breathe through their mouth in the first place. Social media is brimming with anecdotal success stories, but medical experts have raised serious concerns. What works for one person might not just be ineffective for another, it could be dangerous. Seal your mouth without addressing why you were mouth breathing to begin with, and you might struggle to get enough oxygen. Several sleep clinicians have rightly and valiantly tried to educate the public on the fact that people with existing lung conditions or known sleep apnea should be cautious about using mouth tape. The concerns they hold are that blocking off the mouth can be dangerous if your nose isn't clear, like trying to breathe through a partly pinched straw. So let's explore what we have discovered when they put mouth taping to the test. One of the most common reasons people try mouth taping is to stop snoring. Snoring happens when airflow vibrates the relaxed tissues of the throat. Mouth breathing can make snoring worse by drawing the jaw and tongue backward, narrowing the airway. The logical fix would be keeping the mouth closed, but does it actually reduce snoring? And is it safe for everyone? Scientific research on pure snorers, people who snore without sleep apnea, is surprisingly scant. Most mouth taping studies have looked at snoring in the context of obstructive sleep apnea. In one preliminary trial, all participants had mild obstructive sleep apnea and a habit of mouth breathing. They wore a porous patch over their mouths at night. The results showed that snoring frequency decreased from a median of about 147 snore events per hour to just 40 per hour, a 73% drop. Their bed partners also noted the difference as the snoring volume fell by roughly 8 decibels, from approximately 49 decibels to approximately 41 decibels. Another study focusing on mouth breathers with sleep apnea also found that taping the mouth reduced snoring by about 50%. Furthermore, 65% of patients were responders, defined as achieving at least a 50% reduction in their snoring index. However, 35% didn't respond very well, suggesting this is far from a universal solution even within a carefully selected study population. This is an important point. At first glance, such a study would seem like strong evidence in favor of mouth taping, but the fact that over 1 out of every 3 people did not respond and struggled with any benefit tells us something. One person's testimonial on TikTok, for example, doesn't mean it will be universally so for everyone else. While these studies were small, 20 to 30 people, and lacked long-term safety monitoring, they do suggest mouth taping may reduce snoring in those who breathe through their mouths and have no nasal obstruction. A long-standing partner of today's podcast is Element, spelled L-M-N-T. Element is a sugar-free electrolyte drink mix, and for me, it was the sugar-free part that made me start using it a while back. I buy my own supply just to stay objective, and beyond having electrolytes in the right balance, the other reason I'm a fan of Element is that it's scientific. If you look up the people who created the company, you'll find some pretty heavy-hitting physiology, biochemistry, and pharmacology expertise that's baked into the product. And again, all of that comes without any sugar. I also wanted to share that Element's newest limited time flavor, lemonade salt, is squeezing onto the scene Tuesday, May 20th. Anyway, I should note that this is a limited time flavor, so if you like the sound of lemon-flavored electrolyte goodness, grab some now. Happily, I badgered them, and they have agreed to give you fine folks a free 8-count sample pack with any purchase of Element if you use the link lmnt.com/MATTWALKER. So for free product with your purchase, just visit lmnt.com/MattWalker, and as I said, you'll get some free product. What about people who snore but don't have sleep apnea? Here we must be cautious. We're extrapolating beyond available evidence. To date, there's little published research specifically on non-apnea snorers using mouth tape. A recent scientific review noted that mouth taping shows promise for both obstructive sleep apnea and simple snoring, though they emphasized the evidence is minimal and we need more robust trials. Obstructive sleep apnea involves repeated breathing interruptions due to the airway collapsing or becoming blocked. It ranges from mild to severe based on how many times per hour your breathing pauses. Many people with mild obstructive sleep apnea are simply heavy snorers who have occasional airflow blockages. If you force these folks to breathe through the nose by taping the mouth, can you improve their apnea? For those with mild obstructive sleep apnea, some evidence suggests it might possibly help, with emphasis on possibly. Why? Because we must approach these findings with real caution. Let me give you an example. Consider a 2022 study by Lee and colleagues, which specifically targeted mild obstructive sleep apnea patients who breathe through their mouths. They had 20 such patients spend 1 week sleeping as usual and another week sleeping with their mouths taped shut. The impact on their sleep apnea was measurable. The group's apnea-hypopnea index, the number of breathing stoppages or reductions per hour, dropped by 47% on average, from a median of 8.3 events per hour down to 4.7. To put that in perspective, they went from the low end of mild sleep apnea into the normal range, less than 5 events per hour. Other metrics backed up some of these modest benefits. The worst oxygen saturation level during the night improved from about 82.5% up to 87% with taping, and the frequency of oxygen dips and the oxygen desaturation index also got better, 8.7 down to 5.8. Patients reported feeling less sleepy in the daytime, and their snoring was much reduced. Another pilot study in 2015 had similar findings. Using a porous mouth patch in 30 mild obstructive sleep apnea, patients cut the apnea-hypopnea index from 12.0 to 7.8. around a 35% reduction, and they reported snoring severity drop by 2/3. It even showed via throat x-rays that when the mouth was taped, the airway space in the throat was wider, like the tape helped align the jaw or tongue in a better position. The potential benefit for mild obstructive sleep apnea sufferers appears interesting, but must be considered with a lot of caution. Mouth taping appears to be a simple, low-cost tool that may reduce the severity of sleep apnea in this specific group. Some patients might even move from a mild apnea diagnosis to essentially no apnea at all. Let us not forget that these were very small studies without control groups, and they only looked at short-term use. We don't know if the improvements hold up long-term or if there are unforeseen downsides to taping nightly for months or years. None whatsoever. A partner and sponsor of today's podcast is Shopify. Let me share the link right away. Shopify.com/Matt Walker. As someone who spends his days researching sleep, the idea of selling merch felt, well, rather daunting. But I kept getting asked if I had t-shirts or gear. So I finally said, okay, Matt, get your act together and give it a try. And we have them coming. But the big question was, how on earth was someone like me, a scientist, going to get these items into your hands? Everyone said the same thing, use Shopify. It turns out, even me, an analog man in a digital world, was able to do it without any learning curve. Shopify is the commerce platform behind millions of businesses around the world and 10% of all e-commerce in the US. From household names like Mattel and Gymshark to brands just getting started. With hundreds of ready-to-use templates, you can build a really impressive online store that matches your brand style. Oh, and if you need artificial intelligence-powered help writing product descriptions or touching up images, Shopify's got that too. All of which is to say that if you're ready to sell, just try Shopify. So if you are interested, turn your business idea into reality with Shopify. Sign up for your $1 per month trial and start selling today at shopify.com/Matt Walker. Once more, that's shopify.com/Matt Walker. When mouth taping can be dangerous, let's assume for a minute that we find strong and compelling evidence that mouth taping does help some with mild apnea in the next few years. That doesn't answer a critical question. Do moderate or severe apnea patients benefit too? This is where we need to sound a marked alarm. The physiology of more severe obstructive sleep apnea is much more complex. And for some with moderate severe obstructive sleep apnea, mouth taping could significantly worsen their breathing problems. A 2024 clinical study at Harvard revealed concerning findings. During a drug-induced sleep endoscopy, they manually closed the patient's mouths and measured the airflow. The group included individuals across obstructive sleep apnea severities, mostly in the moderate range. The median apnea-hypopnea index was about 27. On average, closing the mouth increased airflow by roughly 28% overall. But, and it's a very big but, the results varied dramatically among individuals. Most troubling, while about 78% of patients either saw improvement or no change in airflow with mouth closure, a notable 22% of patients experienced a significant decrease in airflow when their mouths were closed. In about 1 out of 5 obstructive sleep apnea patients, forcing the mouth shut actually made breathing worse. This is concerning. The researchers discovered why those patients had velopharyngeal obstruction, a blockage in the upper throat in the soft palate area that was being partially bypassed by mouth breathing. For them, the mouth was serving as an essential escape valve for airflow. Closing it was like blocking the only open door in a hallway. Suddenly there was nowhere for the air to go, leading to worse collapse and potentially dangerous oxygen drops. These findings highlight the danger of recommending that everyone with sleep apnea should tape their mouths. Most moderate to severe obstructive sleep apnea patients should be evaluated by a professional and treated with proven therapies like a continuous positive airway pressure machine or a CPAP machine, oral appliances, or specialized surgeries. As Dr. Jeffrey Chadwick and Dr. Andrew Huang have noted in a truly excellent editorial, we have a dearth of well-designed studies on taping in obstructive sleep apnea beyond mild cases, and without more data or clear protocols, prescribing mouth taping widely could cause undue harm in certain individuals. In short, moderate or severe obstructive sleep apnea is not a DIY job. Slapping tape on your mouth without medical guidance could create a potentially dangerous situation. There may, however, be a version of mouth taping not commonly mentioned on social media, for which there is possible cause for use. That is, in moderate to severe obstructive sleep apnea patients who are already on CPAP therapy. Many use a CPAP machine with a mask that covers just the nose. If such patients open their mouth during sleep, the pressurized air can leak out, reducing the effectiveness of CPAP. In these cases, keeping the mouth closed may be beneficial. One study found that when obstructive sleep apnea patients using a full face mask switched to a nasal-only mask with their mouths taped, their therapy worked better. Another trial with patients on nighttime ventilators noted that adding mouth tape significantly reduced air leak and was associated with an increase in REM sleep time. For CPAP users, especially those who find a lot of air escaping from their mouths, a bit of tape might be a helpful adjunct, but this should be discussed with their sleep medicine provider.
Okay, time for some honesty. I've probably eaten more protein bars in my lifetime than I've actually blinked. They've been such a constant for me throughout my life. I recently found David protein bars, and it was my friend Dr. Peter Attia who raised awareness about David. He played a key role in the development of this really quite radical new protein bar. And just hearing it from Peter, knowing his standards, that's all I needed to at least consider making the switch. And then I read about the company. They are fantastic. The bars are built on a simple, groundbreaking concept: the fewest calories for the most amount of protein, period, ever. And each bar contains a wonderful 28 grams of protein at just 150 calories. They have 0 grams of sugar as well. That is the best protein to calorie ratio that has ever been seen in a protein bar. The taste, exceptional. I almost have to ration them. They're that good because I could probably inhale about 10 of them in one go. Protein, of course, by the way, it's critical. It's not just for building and maintaining muscles. It's for managing metabolic health, helping you feel fuller for longer. And it's that unique ratio that I think makes David protein bars just, for me at least, the most satiating that I've also ever experienced. They are fantastic. They've got 6 incredible flavors. And here's a bonus. When you buy 4 cartons, you get a 5th entirely free. If protein bars are your thing, even if they're not your thing and you're considering them, just go on over to davidprotein.com/Matt Walker. That's davidprotein.com/Matt Walker. And you will get a wonderful experience in terms of that bonus. Okay, back to the show.
Let's speak about unnecessary and unproven. More specifically, let us address the question about healthy sleepers without snoring problems or sleep apnea. We have absolutely no good idea based on solid studies. There's virtually no evidence, let alone good clinical trial data, suggesting that mouth taping offers additional benefits for people who sleep normally, and there's insufficient safety data for long-term use. If you're already a nasal breather at night, forcing your mouth shut is unlikely to change anything physiologically in your sleep. One study included a few healthy individuals as test subjects, and unsurprisingly, nothing dramatic happened. These folks slept about the same with or without tape. Some healthy individuals who mouth breathe at night, despite not having apnea or significant snoring, might consider mouth taping. They wake up with dry mouth or bad morning breath. For these people, using tape as a training tool could make some sense in theory. Anecdotally, some report better moisture in their mouth and more rested sleep because they aren't waking up to sip water repeatedly. But this is anecdotal and subjective. We can't quantify more rested as we did with the apnea-hypopnea index. Anyone considering this approach should first rule out nasal obstruction issues with a healthcare provider. Also, never tape up an infant or young child's mouth. And if you have severe allergies or a cold, skip the tape until your nasal passages are clear again. So does the science support mouth taping during sleep? Only a little, and only for a very, very select and specific group of people, and with important safety caveats. If you're a snorer or have mild sleep apnea and sleep with your mouth open, there is some preliminary emerging evidence that taping your mouth could theoretically reduce your snoring, but only if you have clear nasal passages and have been properly evaluated. If you have moderate to severe obstructive sleep apnea, the story is far, far more cautionary. Mouth taping alone is not a proven treatment and could even be really rather dangerous if you have underlying nasal issues or certain types of throat blockage noted in the study by Yang and colleagues in 2024. In these cases, stick with medically recommended therapies. However, using tape to supplement an apnea mask to seal in the air and prevent leaks does have a little supportive data, but not enough for any kind of a consensus. As for healthy sleepers without major issues, the data indicate that mouth taping remains largely unnecessary at best and of unknown safety for long-term use at the very least. For these people, the data would suggest that your sleep isn't wrong to begin with. It might make you slightly more comfortable in the short term, but it might introduce unnecessary risks to your breathing during sleep. The narrative of mouth taping deserves far more scientific scrutiny before any widespread adoption. And I know there will be people listening to this who have tried mouth taping and feel it has transformed their sleep for the better. I can therefore understand why you would want to advocate for it to all others and find some of the cautionary and failure data described here as hard to embrace. I really do. But while mouth taping appears to show some benefits for specific individuals under specific circumstances, the hype has far outpaced the evidence, ignoring that what helps in mild cases doesn't automatically help everyone and could potentially harm some. There are substantive concerns regarding the possible dangers of mouth taping for a much broader array of individuals with breathing disorders, and we have no clear safety data for healthy individuals until proven safe. Considering we are talking about health and the elemental need of your brain cells for oxygen, waiting until there is sufficient evidence proving that it does no harm is the wisest position to take. Until then, I personally view mouth taping with a sober and reverent level of marked caution and await more definitive studies. I hope that makes some sense. And with that, I will bid you my equally reverent good night, sleep well, and I'll see you in the next episode. Take care and bye for now.